So, yeah. Ooh, meeting is
okay, just in case I miss somebody with the link, you're okay with that?
Oh, absolutely. I love it. Nice. Cool. Recording is good. That way if you miss something, if you want to try it over again, absolutely. It's all about little repetitive shapes and mixing this really cool stuff. So here's the sample. And what I love about this particular thing, the colors are a little funky on my computer, so sorry about that. We're actually going to mix a blue with the purple and green. This is what I love about these two particular colors. There's so much blue in this green and so little yellow or red in this purple. When we mix them together, we're going to get light blues. This is where it's coming from for our background. And that's what I love about these two fascinating colors. So the first thing we're going to be doing is mixing those, and we're actually going to get a light blue in the background for this. Don't worry about coverage or making it pretty, because we're going to go over the whole thing anyway. As you can tell, it's kind of impressionistic. So, any questions so far? Am I talking way too quickly?
Nope.
So I'm going to get rid of this thing, and I've got my good old-fashioned palette. I like to squish out different piles of paint around my palette so I can scoop out of those piles. And this goes for all 4 of my colors. I'm just going to get them out there right now. I've got a good, we also use the same quarter, about a quarter size. I get so many Canadian quarters when I worked as a cashier. We would just stick them in the till anyway. Like, same thing, we're good. Laundry machines, however, don't like them. I'm very curious on what happens when you get the American ones. So I have squished 4 of my colors on my palette, and when we mix a color, we're going to scoop out of these piles into another pile on your plate. That keeps your whole bag of flour clean, so to speak. And there's all fancy ways of mixing paint and what goes first, but tonight we're just going to get in there and have the background. So for the background, we're going to need a little bit of white, and you see me scooping that up. And I'm going to take the same brush. Is everyone able to show me what kind of brush you have? If you don't want to show your camera, that's perfectly fine. I understand. Ooh, good, nice and wide. Cool. Good, good. I know we're all working on 8x10, so I was just curious. Okay, I see Kathy might have a teensy bit of a smaller one, but you're going to make it work. It's all good.
Brush supply is kind of diminished.
It's okay.
I give them out and then I don't get them back. So I was digging for this one.
All I know is that the size of the brush can make a difference for how fast you cover your painting. That's why I'm double checking to make sure everyone's has like a really teeny little brush, or it could be a long night. All right.
Do you want me to turn my voice off here? Do you want me to turn my voice off?
I think it does help if everyone stays muted. If you have a question, or like raise your hand or type, I think it'd be wonderful if Annie could help keep an eye out for that. I've learned an experience, if you're not on mute, it can overlap oddly, but I'd welcome your questions, but yes, please. I have a scoop of white. You probably can't even see it on that little thing. There's my white. I'm gonna add a tiny, tiny drop of that green to that white pile, and a tiny drop of the purple to that pile. And I'm just gonna start mashing it in there. Technical art term, by the way, to mash it in there. It's pretty light right now. I've actually got a nice lavender color. You can probably see it on that camera right there. That camera right there. It's kind of gray. That's both a dab, tiny dab of green and purple to that. Now, when you're mixing colors, the general rule is to add your dark colors to your light ones. It would be like adding an entire packet of Kool-Aid mix to 1 cup of water if you did it the other way around. And you'd be adding so much paint, it'd be wasteful. I break this rule all the time. But in general, if you can keep it in mind, it's going to help you to add dark colors to the light ones. And I kind of like where I ended up on that one, so I just added a tiny little bit more of the purple and green. And I'm hoping you can see how what a cool kind of gray color that is, a light purpley gray blue. And when you've got a wonderful color that you like, get that thing on your canvas. get that thing on your canvas. We're probably going to be getting most of it, at least on the top half. So this light gray, this is our background sky. You're peeking through the lilac bushes, and this is just the top. Now, one other thing we can do to make this go farther is add a tiny drop of water. Acrylic paint likes water too much, and it's not going to dry fast enough. It's science. We're not going to get that picky today. But I do want you to have something that dries, or you'll have trouble later on. But water is great. If you do a lot of acrylic painting or crafting, I highly recommend getting a spray bottle. Wonderful thing for your palette or painting outside. And you might even see me spray this as we go. Or spray my palette. Drop the blue. There's no blue. See, I'm gonna stumble over my words too. See, this is the thing she didn't see on my YouTube video, is all of me stuttering and editing all that out and saying the wrong things. Recording's great because you can cut out all the wrong things and then pause. My poor students in live classes are used to this too. It's a test, by the way. When I say the wrong thing, it's a test to see how well you're listening. All right. If you go over half of your canvas, you must start all over again. In other words, it doesn't matter. You're fine. We're going to cover this up with leaves. I also must mention I'm a little snarky. But if that becomes confusing, please let me know. We don't want that. All right. Yay. All right, I'm about halfway down my canvas. I'm also a fast painter, so I will slow down and make sure you've got at least half a canvas there. While I do talk ahead a little bit, I'm also going to be prepping some dark. And I can explain some of that as you paint your background a little bit. So the idea is that you've got a light sky for the purples to pop out of. And at the bottom here, you've got a dark background of the bush for the leaves to pop out of. So we're really playing with a lot of contrast and lights and darks. And that's one of the biggest things. So we've got a wonderful light top, and then we're going to start with a darker green on the bottom. Nice bluish green mixture of stuff from the bottom up. Since I can't see anyone's painting, this is gonna be a very wonderful surprise way of painting. Can't see anybody's stuff until you show it up, and that's okay. I want to give another.
Anna,
Yes.
I joined kind of late, so
That's okay.
which color did you put half? Which colors did you mix to do that? The first half there of the.
This fascinating blue thing is actually a little bit of the green and purple. They've got things in them that cancel out and make a gorgeous, fascinating blue color. So there's a lot of white. You'll want to take a tiny dab of the other two and mix it into the white rather than white into the others. And we're going about halfway down. We'll probably mix this color again or something close to it. And honestly, a lot of it's covered up with leaf stuff anyway. So don't feel bad if it's not one flat, gorgeous color of something, because that's the whole point. It's impressionistic, which is wonderful for people like me who are nearsighted and have to squint at landscapes. All right. I want to give maybe another minute for people to do that light blue on the half. Is anyone confident they're done with that portion of it? Ooh, that's a nice, okay. I see Kathy's got a decently dark one, at least from what I can see, and that's okay. It's gonna look cool with the purples on top of it too. If you wanna do dark, I'm only gonna give instructions for what I'm painting. You can paint whatever you want.
Mine's the same as Kathy's.
Okay, kind of dark, okay.
I've been listening.
Gotcha, that's okay. Deb, ooh, that's cool. Got it, nice neutral color. That's okay. If it's dark, honestly, it's gonna pop out too because of the way the thing is. That's the technical term. Highly technical term. All right, since we've got a good half of us there, we're going to do the darker portion underneath that. Now, if you've got a dark top, You're gonna have dark bottom on this too. That's okay. It's all gonna pop out on top of it. So for this one, sometimes I rinse my brush, sometimes I don't. Too much water on your brush can actually hurt your painting, and that's why I have paper towel to kind of sponge it off. So too much water can actually hurt you. We're gonna make a cool dark color by mixing, I have this pile of green right here already. You might wanna scoop out some more. Green and purple, just plain old green and purple. It gets pretty darn dark. And of course, I added a bit more green to it than purple. And yeah, it's just darn dark. Those two colors together, they're both a little bit transparent, which also helps with the darkness. Just like that. And I'm going to experiment here. The yellow doesn't really help it get any darker. It does help it get duller, and we'll use that later on for more leaves. But we've got just purple and green until you find a nice dark, whatever color you want. That's going to be the darkest possible color we've got in this painting. And that we're going to start from the bottom up and just make that shade of the bush at the bottom. A little bit of water helps. A lot of this will be covered up. That's the theory. A little bit of water can help it spread, but if you've got a really wet brush, it's probably not going to be in your favor. While you can do watercolor effects with acrylic, it's not what we're going for today. What will happen if your paint is too wet is that you'll go to put something on top of it and it will lift up. It will actually leave splotches in your canvas or canvas painting. It'll lift right up again. Whereas with oil painting, it kind of just gets muddy and sits there and gets a little sticky. But with acrylic, it will do that. All right. Mine's turning out much more blue than my first one. I'm okay with it. If yours is turning out kind of blue and you want it to be more green, obviously you've got that big pile of green paint right there you can add. But this is also the time you can add a dab of that yellow that you've squished out. And that will help too if you want more of a fresh bush that's close and it's right there rather than lots of blue sky color. And I'm also going to get that. You can probably see these brush marks, also show it on the camera where I'm talking if that helps too. This is nothing too pretty. It's just nice in colors. It's just on there. I am covering that thing. There it is. Went the wrong way. I'm covering that thing and we're just getting lots of different colors. It's lots of broken colors. So I've got greens in one spot and blues in another. It's brush strokes. It's not about blending. It really isn't. I don't actually do that much blending, partially because of my attention span, and also acrylic dries really, really fast. And there's tons of mediums and things you can add to it to help it blend and act a bit more like oil, but we're not doing that right now. If you have questions about that, let me know. All right. Get nice and dark on the ground. And as you're going farther up your canvas right there, you'll also see me making leafy shapes, honestly, that look like they're poking out into the background. Little leafy, it's just your brush just going off into the distance with one little brush stroke. A lot of them are poking upwards because of what direction you'd be looking at the lilacs or whatever it is, but it's going to get a sense of depth. About halfway up, a little higher, it's all very flexible. It can be nice to add a tiny little bit of white for slightly lighter leaves for that background. So when you're ready, when you've got that dark color going farther and farther up, you can actually add a little bit of white. You're kind of dulling it down, but you're adding a depth to it. You see, excuse me, in this little guy, the farther up I went, the less you could see that line in the background. And that's by adding a little bit of white to the shade of that bush. That's just a trick. If you add too much white, the world's not gonna end. If you don't wanna add any white at all, Also, really not going to end. It's okay. It's flexible. You're going to get leaves anyway, but that's just a cool perspective trick you can use to have the rest of the thing go into the background, which is what we want because the flowers are our main star today. Brush strokes are great. All right. Now, because we've also got that cool dark color green something, we're definitely going to be adding white to that. And this is exactly where I'm breaking that rule of lights to darks, but you've got that puddle there, puddle of paint that you've mixed up. My guess is that you've used up most of it already because you've just painted the bottom of your picture. So you've got a nice pile to add a little bit of white to. And this is where we're actually just going to do dabs in the background on top. So if you see that, I'm just kind of going around in the background on top in that light blue area. You can add more white here and there if you want. You can keep mixing. If you don't have enough paint, add dabs of those different colors to go in the background. It's going to be fun and look cool. You're not even blending that much. It's probably too late. It's probably already dried. But you'll even see in this example here, if I can show it side by side and see it, you'll see like I've got green dabs on top of whatever sky color it is. Now we're doing this not necessarily because we want to blend out the sky. This is actually a choice in density. This is very much a design choice of not having one big flat space. It's to create interest and make sure the picture looks like it all belongs together. Not like you did a whole bunch of teeny tiny detail in one spot and then left the other part alone. So it might be a simple beginner painting, but there's a whole bunch of stuff packed into it. So far, we've just taken that one dark color at the bottom and just lightened it up as we went up. Lots of greens. Have I completely lost anyone yet? Okay, Kathy feels lost. What step are you on, Kathy? Feel free to unmute yourself if you need to. Key on the unmuting.
Yes, leaves. I just started doing the leaves and I'm
Okay.
lost.
Okay, just started doing the leaves as you're going higher up. Okay, cool.
Okay. Hot dog.
Keep
I'm
going,
just
you got it.
You know what? It's my painting, right?
I hope so. I'm not going to judge if you have someone else painting there, but I hope so. That's good to know. Thank you. I can slow down a teensy little bit. I tend to try to charge forward to make the bones of the painting so you can have fun with the details afterwards. Most of my students I've had have so much fun doing the details and the blending bit that I'm kicking them out of the store later on so I can clean up. So once we get through these bones part, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun and blendy, and you could be working on this after we're done tonight too. That's one of the nice things about small repetitive shapes like that. And honestly, we're going to come back to some of the leaves as well. So what's going to be important for us right now is to get the back shadow of the lilac flowers themselves. We are definitely coming back to some of the leaves, but we're going to be kind of posing the leaves around the lilac cones. And this is probably a lot of the scary part for some people because we're free drawing with paint. It's okay, because these things are just triangles. That's all they are, just triangles. You know how to do a triangle. And if you don't, we're going to even make it more simpler than that, especially when it comes to the scary paint part. I'm actually going to take my Q-tip, my cotton swab. We get Q-tip brand here. That's why we just go to that, like Band-Aid or Kleenex. Whatever you've got, it's a cotton swab. I'm just gonna dab my purple with that. And if you can see both of these, I'm going to just decide where these go. I'm going to decide that my big lilac on top is going to end right here. That's the tip of that triangle right up there. And I want that huge thing to end up kind of over here and over here. So it's probably longer than it is wide. Lilacs are all different, but you see I've made 3 points that would make a triangle. You decide where you want it to end up and then make the base from there. So we've got also that. We also have time to do 2 more to practice on what happened right there. So I want the second one. It's also going to poke out over the leaves over here. So it's going to end up right about there. And the base is going to hide in the leaves a little bit. We don't have to worry about it. Right down in here. They can overlap. That's fine. We'll get there. And we can actually fill these in a little bit too, so you're not confused on what triangles you have. So I can take this cotton swab and kind of smudge in that lilac flower. Now, one thing that's going to be very important when you smudge in anything is to start in the center. All right, to start in the center of that. What I'd like to prevent is outlining it like this. If you outline it, I did the exact wrong thing right there because I know how to fix it. And if you do that, and you already did, it's okay. You just might have to do more dots around it. It's fine. That's the nice thing about acrylic paint. It goes right over it. And it's even better when it's impressionistic because it probably doesn't matter anyway. So I'm going to smudge that from the inside. What we're doing here is creating like a shadow base for the lilac flower to show on top of. And I think you see that from the example. It's pretty self-explanatory why we do that. It helps the lighter colors to pop out on top of it. And the other fun part is if you can't draw a straight line, that's a very good thing. You don't want to. Lilacs are so heavy, they'll tip over. They're a squishy little cone. They flop over. So it actually helps us if it's not even that straight. This is the nice thing about doing flowers is that you don't have to be great at drawing to do them. They're so organic. All right, and then I want my third one. I do want it to overlap a teeny little bit. If yours don't, that's okay. If they overlap a lot, that's also it's all okay. All right, I'm gonna have mine stick up right there. And I'm going to follow my own directions and smudge from the inside with the cotton swab. Try to have it tilt over a little bit, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And you see me doing outlines here and there. It's all good. Now, typically, if you're on top of a cone, the bottom of it's going to be a bit curved. But don't worry about it. That's just weird little perspective things with cones. As you can see in the example, those little dots went everywhere, and we can have fun with that. And just those lines on the outside right here are all going to go away. Most of that purple that you smudged on there is going to be all gone. And you'll also notice I went straight over all of the leaf stuff we did too. That's the whole point. Ta-da! Great, got that. So that's just straight up nice dark purple. Probably blend in a little bit, we can tell apart. All right. Now the other reason I'm going back and forth on these colors and shapes is to get it to dry in the right order. That's one of the secret things about short classes is that if you don't paint things in a certain order, you're going to get smudges and it's going to lift up, or you can't put another layer down, and that can be a tricky part. So, does everyone have 3 purple triangles, or most everyone, because that's the nature of painting it live? Okay, I see thumbs up from Deb. Well, we're looking for 3 purple triangles. Ariella has thumbs up for 3 purple triangles. We're getting there. Lisa has 3 purple triangles. Beautiful. Susan has purple triangles and a white triangle. Ooh, fun. I like it. I like how everyone's really made their triangles to take over that section. No one's shrunk them down into the corner anywhere. I like it. Big, bold flowers. Good job. All right, now for something completely different, we're going to go back to the leaves for 1 second because we want that purple to dry a little bit. Again, if it's still goopy afterwards, it's not going to matter because you're going purple on purple and it's going to blend. But we want to make some of those shapes and the bases for the leaves so we can go over them again. So it's a lot of back and forth. Gives it time to dry. I need to get rid of this example because copying can be bad. At this point, you probably will need to mix up some more green that you want. We don't need to go as dark anymore, ever, probably. Not nearly as dark as any of the things we've already made. And so to do that, you're gonna add a little bit of white. I've scooped out some green right here, and I will be a good artist and put it in a clean pile over here to mix. And you can add a little bit of purple to it if you want a blue tinge to those flowers. As you saw, that makes a really cool purple. I'm gonna add a bit of white to it. And if you've got your yellow out, this is also the time you want to maybe add less than that. So I've got a good light grass green, Kelly green kind of mixture right there. Yours could be blue, it could be really yellow. The point is that you want it lighter than your background. That's what we're aiming for right now. It'd be wonderful if it was darker than that light blue, blue sky, darker than that, lighter than the bottom. But I know we have a lot of people who have darker backgrounds on top too. As long as it's lighter than that, make it pop out. That's the whole point. You want it to pop out at this point. You want that contrast. And we'll probably be going over them again as well with something even lighter. So it's layers, it's nice, impressionistic, get some paint on there and you've got some nice shape. So this again it's a simple shape to do. I happen to have a filbert brush. It's round on the tip and it's kind of narrow on the side like that. You could have a flat brush, that works too. Twisting it in your hands gives as you're painting, gives some really cool texture. But basically, it's like making little hearts, honestly. Because a leaf shape might sound daunting, but you've probably doodled hearts. Like, you know, maybe 20 years ago for me, but you doodle hearts, you doodle O's when you're writing. So you can actually use that knowledge. You already have that knowledge how to draw leaves. I'm going to take this spot right here. There's going to be a big old leaf right here. I'm going to draw a heart. A very mushy, oh, whoops, it's a leaf shape. The heart didn't work so well with a giant brush. If you aim at a heart, you'll probably get a leaf. And I've got a big old brush and I'm okay with that. So heart could point a different direction. Maybe you're aiming for ovals instead of hearts. Depends on the brush shape you have, honestly. I'm going to really try to make a heart like that, big green heart. I think that's kind of cool. It's also tilting down a bit, might look more like a squash leaf. So you're trying to fail at drawing a heart. Oh, art. Or even smudges. One big brush stroke of these right off your brush with that color could make a leaf. It sticks out. That's the whole point. So if you're making shapes, if you're making just plain brush strokes, if you're making ovals or hearts, the biggest thing you need to watch out for.
Can you just show me your canvas really quick?
Absolutely. I've got one.
Just to see where we are.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Oh, we're getting there. Yes. Okay, thank you.
So I don't know if you're able to see gallery view. Let me try something real quick to see if it helps. I've got a top-down camera.
Mm-hmm.
If no one is seeing that, I'm going to try something real quick that might help. But I've got to swap the audio. And I think that might help a little bit. How do I mute myself? There it is. Unmute. There we go. Unmute. I'm getting some feedback. Can you all hear that okay?
It's echoey.
It's echoey. Okay, that one's not working so well. Sorry about that. All right, I am sad that did not work. That is odd. if you have the option for gallery view, the one that actually has my name, Anna Barnhart, is the top-down view. Unfortunately, you just saw why the audio really doesn't work for just one, and I apologize for that, but we do have those two different views right there, and hopefully that helps. But
Anna?
definitely, yes, ma'am.
I had to, there's a little arrow at the top beside all our pictures. I had to like go down that arrow to find your gallery view, and then I just
Okay.
pinned you. So you're staying big on my screen now and everyone else is small. That might help someone else.
That's good to know. Thank you. There we go. That's great to know. And if you can't get that view, I will definitely pop this up into the camera for you, for anyone else who needs to see that. So the colors are a little funky from what I can see, just in the camera. What you gonna do? So I've got some leaves popping out over here. They're going different directions. That's what I was in the middle of saying, which it's all good. Just making sure go different directions, or else it will be leaves all in one direction. Tiny little brush strokes, and you're good to go. And actually, looking at a camera to see if I can actually see those leaves really helps me check my contrast. Taking a picture of your painting with your phone, if you have one, really helps to help you check the contrast and everything, because you're looking at it differently. I've got those three big triangles that are kind of droopy, kind of not. They're off to the side, but they're also big. And then you'll also see that same leafiness at the top, nice and light, and I'm mixing that up on here, going off into the background. Those are bright. Whoops. Kind of bright, kind of going into the sky a bit, and that less contrast pushes it back, more contrast brings it forward. I know some people might be trying to do this on mobile. That's what I did for about all of last year with Zoom. And then my husband has a laptop and I didn't think of even trying that with Zoom. Go figure. Get a whole new world of screens with a laptop. All right. The last I checked, we were poking around with the leaves underneath the bush right here. And underneath the lilacs, underneath the bush, it was a medium color green that would pop out over the bottom. I can also paint like this. This works too. For the last workshop I was doing, it didn't even occur to me that I'd try to paint top down. So I was like sideways, only it was a collage. So I'm trying to hold these pieces on there while I'm gluing it. It worked, oddly enough. Something about it worked. But I was trying to find one other option so I could also see your faces. Yay. And this is the fun part with those leaves. As they get lighter, as they get bolder, those big brush strokes are half the fun. They're going all over the place, but they're all aiming down for the most part. I mean, some leaves are kind of, they do what they want in the wind, right? But it's a bunch of big old brush strokes. That's how easy it is. That's how just laid back these big old leaves are. And we can go over them again with something lighter to make it pop out into the foreground. That's what's closest to us. So we can go over them again later on and bring them closer. This is also the point, if you're working on leaves, where we want to go over, we want to overlap the base of our lilacs right here, because that's going to help push it farther into the background. And I'm even doing differently than the sample I had made earlier. It doesn't matter where you put it. These are already overlapping each other, so we're going to do something differently there. You don't have to worry about leaves there unless you want. It's your painting. You can put leaves all over it. You can cover up the lilacs completely with green leaves if you want. I can't stop you, literally. And then I'm going to put a leaf over here. That was going to point up. A leaf is going to go on top of the base over there. Does it help when I have it up in this one? It does. Okay. Cool. I can work with it. in in-person classes, sometimes I paint upside down like this. So that we've got this. We can do this. Now, drawing 2-point perspective upside down will hurt your brain. You're warned. It's good for you, but it hurts your brain. Leaves, more leaves. They're getting lighter and lighter. And you can see how you can have just way, way too much fun with all of these leaves, honestly. They're just big old brush strokes. Kind of pointy, kind of hearts and ovals that end in a point. And I don't know, let me see. We've got some people with, I saw some flat brushes out there, so I could even switch brushes and probably show something closer to what you're working with. Different colors, of course. So you've got a flat brush, you've got square brush strokes here and there. You can also turn this sideways and get some thinner brush strokes with this big old flat brush. You can actually twist it as you paint and get a little triangle out of that. Twist that. I like flat brushes. I like that big, chunky, faceted, shimmery look with those. When I taught at Michael's, it was certified, it sounds so fancy, through Grumbacher, the paint company. It sounds so fancy. And they had all the classes work with these filbert brushes. Filbert brushes and then one little round brush, like the typical paintbrush. And I got so used to using that, even in my own painting, that and I bought a whole bunch of student brushes for that I still use some of those. It's basically a big old flat brush that's rounded at the tip, and you can do different things with that. And using these like flatter ones right here are also great to work with. All right, we are coming up on a point where we need to pause with the leaves again, let them dry, because whatever else we put on top of the leaves is just going to be the fun decorative bits. And we definitely have to get to the dabbing with the purple parts, because that's the really fun stuff. But this gives us a background that we can play around on. You can play around with that. It's just, they're just big old brush strokes. I hear something. Now, most of the lilacs around me are just about done. I've got some near my work that bloomed fast and are gone. So I don't know where the lilacs are for you right now. All right. I'm going to give one more minute for leafage and foliage, because it can be fun. While we're catching up on leaf all around, does anyone have questions so far? Anything I can help? No news is good news. I'm okay with that too. Am I going way too fast? Nope. Okay, I see head shakes. I like good, good. Feedback is good. For my palette. Yay. I miss not being able to see people's art. What I would do, oh, nice. Cool. Lise. Is that how I should pronounce your name? Lise? Okay, very cool. I like how you've left holes so you can see the sky and things behind it. Nice. Nice, Kathy. I love it. Looks very blue. It'll look good all together. I love it. Nice. From Annie. Annie's daughter that I forget her name. I'm sorry. Looks cool.
Jaden. Her name's Jaden.
Jaden. Thank you.
Jaden.
Okay. And Susan's. Nice. Oh, she's going in with the cones. I like it. She's got some gorgeous leaves going on there. Nice, good, strong leaf shapes. Nice.
It's the worst out of everybody's.
What's that?
Oh, wow. Look at that one. That one's great.
Ooh. Good job, Deb. Nice. Is that an 8 by 10? That looks bigger. You guys are charging ahead. Nice. Can't hear a word you're saying, but I'm thinking you're saying, ooh, I had this other canvas and I wanted to go bigger. You're still on mute. It's okay. But good job for going and keeping up with a bigger canvas. That's also tricky with how long time things can be. But I love seeing all the different ones. When I do in-person classes, I'll usually steal people's artwork like halfway in between and then show it to them across the room, because you're up close to this thing, maybe a foot away, and you are so bogged down into being at close little details that you can't even see the whole picture anymore. And so I'd steal it and stick it across the room, which is also good for your eyes. And honestly, you don't usually go up to someone's wall to look at a picture this close anyway. So when your final picture is done, you're going to be a good 5 feet away. So it's a great way to check. Also squinting. Squinting is great for checking composition and values, all that fancy stuff. But we're here to have fun and not learn anything. So what we need is some purple. Our next big step is doing that wonderful little dabby bits all over the lilacs. And what I've done here is working with mostly 2 different values, 2 different light and darks of the purple. And we're actually going to start with a medium purple and then put the lightest one on top. So I'm going to take my brush, and because I'm trying to have good painting habits, scooping out the light. I think I've heard someone call it the mothership. This is the mothership of the light, and make a little satellite over here. And then I scoop a dab of purple out of the mothership. That's probably going to be way too much. Into the satellite and mush it in there. I find that this purple is really, really bright when it's just by itself. So there's 2 things we can do. And I tend to like I don't know, there's some really pink lilacs. And the really, really pink lilacs, I believe, they're pretty. I believe it's pinker when they haven't opened up yet, and some of them. So you could use that to your advantage on some of these. The pink stuff kind of pretty. If I add a teeny tiny little bit of that green to blue this down, this green also has some yellow in it. And if you're familiar with color theory, yellow is the opposite of purple. So adding a tiny bit of yellow, which is already in the green, it's going to kind of dull it down a tiny little bit, but I think it looks more natural. Unless you want something super bright, and that's a design choice. That's all up to you. Neon bright purple could look awesome if you've got that. If you've got a bit of red hanging around somewhere, adding that to the purple will make like that unbloomed lilacs. They're much redder, at least some of the ones I've seen in the bush outside. So we've got, I need to mix up probably more than that. You can see I don't have that much on that plate. Shame on me. Medium, whatever color purple you're making right now, you're going to go 1 shade lighter in the next step. So just keep that in mind for whatever you've got going on. And probably wash out your brush at that point. And then if you have something to dry it on, that will help. If you don't, the brush will survive. Now I've got my medium purple. I'm gonna slip, what did I do? Got my medium purple and my cotton swab. And I do this with cotton swabs partially because it's a really fun thing that's not a brush. It's just fun to paint with not a brush because it's all about shapes and the big blobs of shapes anyway. You could use the tip of your brush. For dipping into the paint if you wanted to. You can use it to scrape out paint. That's a whole different technique. But cotton swabs are just another fun way of using something else, and it's round. Round, and all the paint sticks to the end. If you used a brush, like a round brush, like this little guy, what I have found is that the paint doesn't stay on the end of the brush very well. You have to constantly scrape off your brush and stick the paint back on the end, and then you've also got these really thick globs of paint on there, and especially with short classes, it doesn't dry, and then, yeah. This stuff, it stays in the end. It's right there. These are nice and cheap. You can chuck them if you don't have a brush, honestly. And I think I've stalled enough now for everyone to have some purple going. So with cones, I kind of have a cone there. Let me see. With cones, they're basically just round triangles, right? They're round. So they're going to have light coming in from both sides all the way around. This is a medium purple. And, well, let's just get that stuff on there, and you can tweak it as you go. What I like to do with lilacs, and these are going to be big things, it's all fours. Tiny little lilac flowers are all in fours. Okay, let's get this real close. We can do this. Right there. Ha! Detail painting. It's all little fours. Look at that wonderful little dots that cotton swab makes. And you notice I'm going right over the edge of that shadow. That's the whole point, is that once you have enough of them right there, you won't really even see the edge. You're kind of blending it in. I'm gonna go over here and do some fours. Here, 1, 2, 3, 4. And they don't have to be all in fours either, because once your brain knows it, like some of these might stand out a little bit, and your brain will be like, oh, they must go in fours. And then you can do a bit of this at the bottom, and your brain will fill that in farther down. Especially for impressionistic like work or paintings or any art where it doesn't have to be completely correct everywhere. It's like being out of focus. You don't have to have all the information, your brain fills it in. I want to say Alfred Hitchcock actually used that a lot in some of his films as well. He stopped right before you could read the entire frame. All right, fours everywhere. And you'll see I picked up some other darker purple here and there, but that medium purple goes all around there. Why is it drying out? There's the detail cam. Now it seems like a good idea to me to show you why I'm putting that medium purple only on that one side right there and kind of into the center. Because once I show you how to do this lighter purple, I think you've got it figured out already, quite honestly. It's going to go on the other side of your lilac because that's where the light is coming from. With these lilacs right here, all the light is coming in from the top left corner, and that's where you probably want your lightest little petals to go. Of course, it's a cone, so it could be in shade in the bush. It could be coming around the other side, so you can poke some more on the other side like that. But the general idea is that the right side of your lilac cone is in the shadow of something, and the left side is hit by the light a little bit, just that alone. And that is also what's going to make these little guys pop out right here. So you've probably got a lot of that medium purple going on. You can swish around some white in that pile as well. All of these broken colors, it helps make kind of a cool interest to this whole thing. Now I'm going to take that same medium purple and start putting it in fours. Some good strong fours and some mushy little threes and some twos. Once you've got a couple really strong fours in there, your brain's going to catch on to that, like I said, and fill in the rest of what you've got going. So you don't have to worry about all of them being in fours. Unless you want to. I'm not going to, you can do what you want. And I can go around the leaf, you can go over the leaf. Okay. Oh. This is probably the part where I just stop painting myself and help everybody go around, because I'm confident I can do dots. Well, I say that and then I'm gonna mess up just for, it's like, really? Dots, really? It's so easy for you? I will not challenge the hubris. Unfortunately, I don't have any really good stories about these paint colors. It sounds like telling stories about the history of paint would be really boring until you actually know where Mummy Brown came from. Fortunately, we don't use that color anymore. Fortunately. I'm sure there's still archives that actually have them. It was popular around 1900s to grind up mummies and make paint out of them. They were a nice, nasty looking paper bag color, I believe, of paint. Yeah, that was a color. I love telling these paint stories of, like, you wouldn't think this is really cool stuff, or maybe you don't think it's cool stuff, but there's a lot of culture that boils down to paint history. I'd like to tell one of my favorite stories about pink and blue, but before I do that, do I need to go over anything with the purples and the light purples, or is there anything I need to go over again or can help with mixing? I think everyone's just having fun just doing dot, 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 dot. Light on the left, darker on the right is the main guideline, and then everything else is that tiny little dots all over. I need to read up more about this particular color. This is Dioxazine Purple. Definitely a newer synthetic, gorgeous, bright purple. We've got a cadmium medium yellow hue. If they got the yellow I recommended. It's a very warm yellow. It tends to mix nice, good natural greens, I think, because it's a warmer yellow. A lot of colors can come in warm and cool. Even reds can be cool. That's something that's really fun color theory and blah, blah, blah. And more dots. All good. More dots. Light on the left, dark on the right. And you can even go in there again with that super dark purple on top of some of the other ones. If you do that, I would only put them on the third. So this whole line of the third, I'm going to just draw on this thing right here to show you. So in shadowing a cone, the darkest spot is probably going to be right back there, especially if the light's coming from the other side. You've got light coming from the outside right here, and you've got light coming around over here, which probably might have a different color to it as well. So this could be a guideline if you want to get a little more advanced with where your values are going. And I'm also doing this sideways, so I'm getting the glare. This is basically like painting a squished ball. Spheres are also shaded the same way. I'm not even going to try to say that word right now. We get that darker part of the cone. So I think I've added a little bit of more advanced shading to that one, if you can see kind of where your darks and lights are going on these dots. If that helps anybody who might be stuck or wants to correct theirs a little bit. I feel like that's more cone-like. You can be lighter right there. You can see that rendering on that little guy. So one of my favorite stories about pink and blue has mostly to do with the blue. Now, I'm guessing for all the people here, we are very familiar with pink being for girls and blue being for boys. Well, that's a very, very new concept that's slightly over 100 years old. That's it. So this whole thing is based off of ultramarine blue. I'm sure you've seen it lots of places. Ultramarine blue is really cool. Yeah, how about that color? Yeah, about that color. So back around 1000, year 1000, 1020, somewhere around there, they would use the most expensive pigments for the most important people in the picture. And blue was actually the most expensive color there was. They would actually use gold, the gold leaf, to paint some of the really important pictures. And in this particular time in Western culture, religious art and Catholic art was the biggest stuff out there. So they would be painting Mary and Jesus and all the disciples and all this religious stuff, and the most important people would get not gold, but blue, because it was more expensive than the gold. You'll see a lot of that old illuminated stuff from middle hundreds. I heard a blip.
It's okay.
Okay, just checking to see if you had questions. So, because this was a heavily Catholic tradition, and especially at that time, Mary was actually more important than Jesus. So they wouldn't give her a gold halo, they gave her a blue headdress. Of course, with this ultramarine blue, but why was it so much more expensive than gold? This blue came from crushed lapis lazuli, however you want to pronounce that. I've heard so many different kinds. Lapis lazuli? I can read things a lot better than I can pronounce them, I swear. Crushed lapis lazuli rocks. And the best kind, even today, come from Afghanistan. And as you can imagine, the Western world has never had the greatest relations with Afghanistan or that area. And we're talking crushed dust of the rocks. I have seen a video of them making it, and it's kind of mush it into this dough, and then whatever comes out of the dough is the paint, and it is that gorgeous color. So getting that blue from that place at that time, yes, very much more expensive than gold. And they put it on Mary. So what I find fascinating about this is that during Christmas time, if you get those little nativity scenes, Mary is probably wearing blue for this reason. But about 1900-ish, I believe it was Macy's that tried to swap this. Just for marketing, just like, hey, pink is the new blue. So, you know, if you're playing red team and blue team, they seem like natural opposites to each other. Natural, seemingly opposite of red is blue. And so, ooh, like blue, like pink, boys would be in pink. If you've ever read the book, either Little Women or Little Men, I forget what it's in, Little Men is the sequel to Little Women. They actually mention this of pink being for boys and blue being for girls, and I thought it was a typo, but it was written before Macy's swapped it over. So yeah, that's the story of ultramarine blue and why girls were blue and boys were pink, and why we beat each other up over this on the playground all the time. And a lot of Asian cultures, it's not a thing that doesn't question anybody's anything. In Japan, if guys wear pink, it's fine. Women can wear light blue. So yeah, that's the story of where that all came from. If that if that helps anything, or just fun art history stuff that has really affected us and we don't know where it came from. I love asking those questions. All right, Annie, I see someone waiting in the waiting room. I'm going to let them in, if that's good with you. I don't know if all right. Who knows where they ended up? So yeah, I love telling stories about art history like that. Hello, Kathy.
Hi, I got just,
It happens, it's okay. Annie was telling me that she has recorded this whole thing, so it'll be great to go over again, and you can pause it, especially since I talk really quickly anyway. And go over a little bit.
Thank you.
All right, we've got a lot of dots going on right now with our cotton swabs. They're these really nifty things to paint with. I should at least finish one of these. I was just telling stories about why girls wear blue and boys wear pink. And yeah. Unfortunately, the colors we're working with right now, I don't have the greatest stories about. Hey, more dots. All right, check the time. We're doing great. Does anyone have questions so far now that I have let you on your own painting and told stories and gone all nerd-like on the art stuff? That's what I do. I don't see any so far. Cool.
I'm just gonna go grab water.
Okay. So as you can see, this dotting thing can take as long as you want it to. It's relaxing. It just keeps on going and going, especially when you've got 3 of these things. And that's the reason why there's only 3 of these cones right now. That's why we're working big on those. So thank you everyone for filling up your canvas with that. You'd be surprised, even art students want to doodle this teeny tiny little thing on their page. Look, I'm done. You don't learn much with it. And I also found that the lilacs don't turn out as well. This is a pretty big blob. On whatever little cotton swab you have, it makes a pretty good sized dot, honestly, for trying to do something smaller. Sound effects. I like how we can get nice and detail-like with this too. That's handy. If I pull this away from me, not only do you see my messy studio, but what I see in this is that I'm following along the edges of my lilac way too closely. So I even need to pull it away from myself sometime. So this big guy, I am following along that edge way too closely, and it looks like it's got too much of an outline. And this is only guidelines. I was looking at lilacs the other day. They come off quite a bit away from their stem. So a lot of this shadow probably doesn't need to be here. It's a design choice. No one can just tell me otherwise. But having those come much farther away, I think is really going to help. And I can get some mixed up dots right there as well. So, and that already I think is an improvement. So if you find your little dots following your triangle too closely, just pull them away from the edge a little bit. You're fine. It's nature. It's gonna be weird. You're gonna find one exactly like what you've painted in nature somewhere. Even if it doesn't look like a lilac, you'll find it. Who knows what it'll be. So yeah, I'm just gonna go away from the edge a little bit. I think that helped right there. Like, how do I show you without the glare? Yep. So that's where you're troubleshooting even your own stuff. That's half the fun of art. All right, since we're at troubleshooting, if we're critiquing that one, how can we make that better? If anyone's looking at just this one cone that I've been working on, we've got some medium stuff here. It's lighter over here-ish. I realize we have a little bit of glare going on. That might help. I've pulled some away from the edge. What else might help that? And that's not a trick question. I don't know. I want you to critique my stuff, and what do you see that I can't? And if you don't see anything, if you want to, that's okay. If you want to work on yours, you might see something in mine that you might want to try. You might see something that you've done. They're like, well, why didn't you do that? I might not know either. That's something to think about. You can keep on going if you want. What I do think we're going to do in about 2 minutes is go back to the leaves a little bit. Because this dot thing, either you've gone a lot of the dots at this point, or you have a lot more to do. But I think you've got a good hand on 1, 2, 3, 4. You've got mediums, you've got darks, you've got lights. I should add a little bit of darks here and there as well. So in about 2 minutes, we're going to switch. And we're also going to add background lilacs as well when we switch, because you'll have some of that purple smudgy stuff left. That will also help, and I'll show you how. Mine's starting to dry out. We will survive. And of course, you can go over all the smudges stuff you've made anyway. You can go over this stuff almost as many times as you want. That's one of the beautiful things of acrylic painting. You don't have to worry about layers, hardly at all, honestly. Especially if you're not working with transparencies and opaqueness and all of that. You don't have to worry about layers with acrylic. Go right on top. Yay! All right, it has been 2 minutes. Okay, so because you've still got smudgy purple stuff on whatever you're holding, probably, we're actually going to add some of this to the background down here, just to give it the idea that you're only looking at 3 of these lilacs on the bush, and there's actually more there. You can actually see some more of this purple stuff in the background over here. It kind of blends in a lot with the the dark leaves. That's kind of the point, because we really are making these three the central stars. So I'm gonna make a smush. It could be cone-shaped. I don't know. That's a little bright, honestly, for that spot. We are trying to make these lower contrast, so not quite as bright as the ones on top.
Are you smushing with medium or lighter? Or
Probably medium. Probably a
Okay.
good medium. You don't want it to jump out at you too much. It's to help blend purples into the other parts of the painting. I think I can even smudge it the old-fashioned way with my finger. I am absolutely a finger painter. You don't want it to stand out too much if you can help it. There we go. Controlling the contrast. Like that. Whee! I kind of like what I did there, kind of didn't. I'm kind of doing those in the leaves a little bit where it might be farther away. And if you don't like what you did, you're only using 4 colors, probably only 3. They're really easy to mix up again and go on top of something if you don't like what you did. That's another thing about using what basically called limited palette at this point, when you're only using a few colors instead of a whole new tube of blue, a whole new tube of purple. It's a little easier to remix some of these. And it all goes together too, so it's a limited palette. Also helps when you don't have a budget. You only have to buy a few tubes of paint. And these are fascinating that you get such a range out of this purple and green. So for Kathy, who has joined us, you probably saw on the materials list maybe, or the kit you got, if you got one, if you were part of the group that got a kit, I don't know how it worked. You've got green and a purple. And when you mix those two together in teeny little dabs with that white, you get a fascinating dull blue. It's a really cool effect from these particular colors. This is a really, really, I call it juicy green. It's a very, very heavy on blue. And so is the purple. Now, because purple and green actually have colors in each other that are complements, kind of like they're yellow and purple. And then there's red and green. The complements in these paints cancel each other out and you get the blue. That's the nutshell version. And it's because they're so stinking blue, you get some of that. And so you basically get a 4th, 5th bonus color on top of the tubes you've got. All right, smudging up the purples in the background. Should be pretty simple, nothing stand out too much. This is just my sample. There it is. I go the opposite way in Zoom and I can't see where I'm headed. And you do see that in the original sample as well. I made some of these big leaves way too bright for my liking, so I'm not going to go quite that bright this time. You might like that super strong contrast. Go for it. But I found that too bright when I had finished up, especially with the glare that I see right here. So I think we've probably smudged plenty enough of the purple in the background, because it's possible to do too much and ruin all your gorgeous leaves. And we're going to need a lighter green than whatever you have going on here. Lighter green, we're going to make it pop one more level out. I guess ideally you could say you want it as light as the lightest purple, maybe. Some lilac bushes don't have dark leaves. They don't, there's so many different kinds. So I tend to go kind of lighter just to make them pop out. And that's one of the last steps, other than going back and forth with all the other little things and tweaking spots, but that's basically the last step we've got. You probably have a pile of yellow still. So leaves, this is definitely a time where you add a bit more yellow to it, because yellow is one of the colors that it dies out quickly in the landscape. Again, this is atmospheric perspective. This is heavy duty art stuff right here. Yellow is one of the first colors that leaves your vision, like just the distance. So when you put yellow stuff in the closest thing to the foreground, the closest thing to you, you're also helping create a little bit of depth. Now, I don't think this kind of green is totally accurate to lilac bushes. I'm really pushing the color on these. I'm not trying to get a photographic representation of the bleh, obviously, at this point, obviously. And so I might take some of that smudgy green, yellowish stuff that's lighter than what I have. Feel free to also swap your cotton swab if you need to. You might see that mine's like a pulled out, torn up mess right now. I'm not going to get good shapes with that. So hopefully they were not stingy with the cotton swabs with you. I don't think they would have been. You might have at least 2. Inflation. At least 2, probably like 10. And so on some of these big leaves, I'm going to show you how I detailed some of these with that lighter green. So we're not making any more new leaves with this unless you want to. The point of this is to actually go over some of the leaves you've already made and add kind of smudgy details on them like that. So I started in the center of the leaf and pulled out like this. Center of the leaf, not quite following the edge, but following the edge of that leaf, if you see what I did there. And I can do another one. So this one's kind of standing out right here. So the center, smudge, center, smudge, center, smudge. And kind of losing it a little bit as well, but I kind of like that. If you can see that. So as you can see, you need something light enough that stands on your leaf. Let me see what I can do here. So you can get this super close-up view right there. I'm gonna make this into a leaf like I wanted to. So I'm gonna pretend one of these has a center. That's the other thing about acrylic is you can make up as you go along. Go right on top of it and it doesn't usually complain too much. Like that. So I kind of made my own center out of that. Now what I'm doing right now is ignoring the fact that some of these leaves would actually probably be in shadow, especially even just part of them. If you want to do advanced painting that way, go ahead and shadow some of them. Like this one would be poking out from somewhere. I also need to squish out some more green. Yeah, there we go. So we're mixing in some advanced techniques where you do want to shadow a few things that are going underneath the other parts. And same goes for this lilac right here. So because they're overlapping, well, I'm going back and forth already now with the purples and stuff, so I don't want to do that to you. I apologize. Some of these leaves would probably be darker in the background, kind of towards the top, depending on where you want them to face. And that's something I realized I didn't do quite as well with the sample because I was just trying to get it done and time myself for what we were doing. So I can critique my own work here and show you what not to do. You see, this is one big shaped leaf right here, and it's all the same value. Now, you might be happy with that. It might be pretty. If that's the way you want it, cool. But I want a little bit of a shadow difference as it tilts away from me. It's pretty smudgy. That was too dark right there. I think that helped it tilt away. Or this little guy under here needs a shadow. So it's going underneath that lilac bit a little bit, especially like right under here. So that's just a simple little way of checking shapes and keeping in mind something might be a bit more shadowy than you might think. And this green that we've got is so transparent, it's great for adding those shadows. You don't have to worry about that too much. I'm just saying words now at this point. Yep. It looks all different. These, I'm going to make sure I have to grab the right cotton swab or else we get very interesting results. I have not done that much surrealist painting yet to try that. One other, I'm just here to show you all sorts of cool techniques and different painting things. So there's another way you can actually make veins and leaf patterns in here. And this is a highly technical technique of breaking one of these little guys. And you've got this wonderful little scratchy stick. This is also a really cool little art tool that you can use. And there's a fancy Italian word for this technique of scratching something out that I can't remember right now. So I'm going to take some green stuff that contrasts with whatever leaf I'm putting this on. This is good. Just mush this on here just like this. A little darker. And I'm going to get a whole bunch of paint on that leaf right there. I think you can we see this? Yes. Wet paint has glare. Who knew? I'm going to cover that leaf kind of, sort of. And I'm going to take my very technical, newly made scratchy stick while the paint is still wet and scratch some veiny stuff out of it like that. I think you can see that. You'll see it if you try it, I promise. Make sure your paint is nice, thick, and wet in there, and you can see some really cool texture. Stratificato? One of those means smoke, the other means scratch. So I'm not even going to try to give you the fancy Italian art term, but it's really something that's really fun to do that gives you fascinating texture. You do have to be careful you have wet paint to do this. That's the trickiest thing to do with acrylic with this technique, is making sure it's thick and wet enough to scrape it back out. Easier to do that than oils, as you might imagine. All right. As we come down to the last 10 minutes of this, the very last thing that I would recommend you do, especially with one of those broken cotton swab tiny spears, is to use that in your yellow and add, I don't know, is that pollen in the lilacs? That tiny, teeny little bit of yellow that you get in the center of those fours. I see that on some of the lilacs around here. Is it pollen? I should learn that. I know plenty of art and paint history things. I should learn these flowers too. But again, just like you only need to see some sets of 4, you don't need to put the yellow bits on all of these either. Just a few, probably especially the ones that you saw with the sets of 4. You can make it lighter than that. You've got plenty of paint in there. But this gives you a really tiny controllable dotting thing to add. I've definitely seen that on some lilacs, and this will add a nice dimension of texture and detail and a tiny different kind of pop of color, especially if you've used that yellow in your leaves. This is another way you can get that extra color in and out of that. The way I paint, I like to get bits of the color everywhere in the painting, unless it's on purpose. So if I use yellow in this corner, I want to try to put it at least 2 other places. I believe the technical term for that is triangulation. It helps unify the painting and make it all go together. Of course, artists are rule breakers, and if you don't do that, if you put like one big blob of red right here, it's going to stick out just a little bit. If you do it on purpose, that's a technique. I love telling my students, or if that can include you, if you do one thing and it's a whoops, it's a mistake. You know, you didn't mean to. If you can manage to do that same thing on purpose, that's a technique. That's how techniques were born. So being aware of what you're choosing to do is all about art, even if you're choosing to not be in control. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk. And that's about it. You might have more dabbly bits on yours than mine I do. That's why I did this one. And I have a little one somewhere. A little one that I found maybe a little too dark from what I was going for, but I really had fun with the deep texture on that little guy. So I like doing this in different sizes because they're simple shapes. You can go over and over and dab and dab and dab. And if you don't like it, go right on top with more acrylic. Or you could go over the entire thing and do a landscape if you wanted to. So lots of options. Does anyone have any questions? Are they stuck on anything? Have you ruined the entire thing by now? And it will be okay because it's recorded. Because I think we have done a great job with timing. I kind of showed you a few little detailed things and just let you go and do your thing. Oh, nice. Looks great. Kathy Joint Taylor. Like, there's more than one Kathy now. Kathy with a C. Cool.
Very good.
Nice. Ooh, that's nice. I like Lisa's, I like the light additions on top there. It makes it dance a little bit. Nice, and you really punch that light on the top. Cool. Deb is just having fun painting. She's gone. Like, I'm bye.
I'll show you, but it needs a lot of work.
Okay, that's the whole point. That's okay. I think it's gorgeous. You're
Oh,
having
wow.
fun.
That's beautiful.
Nice.
Very nice.
Lots of shape in that one.
Oh yeah, lots of strong shapes, and that's what we're all about. Messiness, strong shapes, and I think you had a lot of fun with just daubing all of that. It's great. Oh, cool. Cool. It's got a gorgeous one. Nice, strong. I like the strong leaf shapes. I definitely see people doing the hearts to get that good point on the end. Do you think that worked well? Just describing it as a heart, a mushy heart? I see nods. Okay. That gives me feedback, like, how do I draw this? It's a simple shape. You know how to do this. I just want to make sure my metaphors are right. Or
Did
else
you
it can get real fun.
other classes or?
Yes. So I usually teach in person around my area or class festivals and things like that. The local Hobby Lobby actually lets me use their classrooms, and I'll do all sorts of stuff because I don't do Grumbacher specific classes anymore. Long story. I believe Annie found me on my YouTube channel, and so I realized I missed teaching adults to play. I miss teaching adults to make messes and making pretty things, and it honestly helps my painting. It's another exposure. It's another way of getting things out there. And so a lot of times I'll put real-time or even tutorials on my YouTube channel for now. I'm working on kits, but I'm avoiding any kind of international paperwork. So YouTube is probably the best place for that. If you have requests for classes or something in particular, like a flower, landscape, I do natural stuff. If you have something in particular you want to see me paint, let me know. I can do that real time on my YouTube channel. I love getting feedback of what do people want. I can try, and worst case scenario is I just won't paint it. So there. That's the real long answer to your question.
Well, thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
You've
Thank
been
you
great.
so much for asking and finding me.
Yeah, well, hopefully we can do it again, maybe in the fall or something.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you everyone for following along and trying this whole Zoom thing. This is my only second Zoom art painting class I've done. But I know Welland Library has done quite a few of them now. That's really cool. So I don't know who's done like more than 3. Nice. All right. So Kathy with a C and Deb has done more than 3. That's cool. Is anyone
Yeah.
here? Is this your first time doing one? All right. For Kathy with a K. All right. And she hopped on. Cool. Well, if there's a way I can hear how you went along with the recorded one, that'd be awesome. I think my contact information was in the stuff if you want to follow my other stuff, or hopefully we'll do one in the fall. That sounds like fun, whether you're in person or not. I'm only a 6-hour drive away.
Yeah. No, this was fun. I think it worked out well.
Cool.
Everybody got a little sheet just about Anna's art herself.
Ooh.
Find her on the internet, so just look her up. I did find her on her Facebook, or no, YouTube channel, I
I
believe.
think so.
But she has a AnnaBarnhart.com as well. So anyway,
Thank you.
thanks again for joining us. I think
Ooh, so fancy.
got us off any minute. So
Oh, gotcha. Well, thank you all. Have a great evening as y'all booted off. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for inviting me and having fun.
yes, it was very fun. Thanks, Anna.
You're welcome. Have a great evening.
Okay, bye.